All right, I'm John Anthony Hartman here with AlphaGeek TV with Josh Green.
Okay, how you going?
He's from that other coast over there, Cambridge area, and you've got there's some school you're associated with. I think it's MIT.
Yeah, it's a tech college.
College.
It's a little tech college on the Charles. So I work in the comparative media studies program out at MIT.
And so this is Josh's second year here, and he's kind of seen this thing from year 1 to year 2, and was brought back by popular demand.
Apparently so.
Everything I've heard and seen, and it was wonderful, by the way. And just yet an amazing discussion about kind of the evolution of convergence culture over the last couple of years, and what your experiences are being in the kind of think tank.
Yep.
Business meets entertainment industry meets education. What does all this mean except mashup culture, YouTube and Twitter and all those kind of fun technologies, and what this means to the mediascape. And you talked specifically to the, today you brought about the latest little meme about the Mad Men and kind of fan fiction meets copyright. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, right. So I got up this morning, I got up to do this, I was going to do this sort of overview. You know, it's been 2 years since Convergence Culture, the book by Henry Jenkins, has come out, and it's not like that book it made a pretty big splash on the landscape, and also it's provided a lot of the core principles for a lot of the work that we've done with the Convergence Culture Consortium for the last 2 years. So I wanted to kind of do a bit of a retrospective, a bit of a sort of where are we 2 years down the track. I feel like the conversations we're having this year at the conference, even only 12 months from last year's conference, there's a lot more common terms. I think there's a lot more common knowledge, and it also it seems to me that the last 12 to 18 months, last 2 years, there's been a lot of rapid development and a lot of kind of catching up. I think people have done. So they've eased themselves into the sort of the convergence media space. It's like getting into a warm bath, and first it's sort of a little bit too warm, and then you sort of sit down and then you're in the bath. And so I thought it might be prudent to do a kind of a retrospective. Of course, I didn't do that because I got hung up on the AMC Twittergate thing that happened a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was really, really interesting. So that's what I spoke about today.
Yeah, the transmedia principles. I love the story arc across platform, and that's kind of the thing that we've kind of tried to create with this whole AlphaGeek TV thing, was to try to, from an independent producer's standpoint, create these micro pieces that we're putting all over, and see what we can do without the lost, multi-million-dollar budget, and see what we can achieve.
What I think is really interesting about the transmedia thing is that, I wouldn't say it's become standard, but it's certainly far less exceptional, I think, than it used to be. And when I say used to be, probably than it was 2 years ago. I think probably than it was 18 months ago. The notion that narrative would bleed over boundaries now doesn't seem such an exceptional one, and you see it. You see it in many places, and a lot of really ordinary places. So The Hills has online journals and MySpace pages that continue the narrative. Things happen behind the scene. Gossip Girl is very good for this stuff as well. And granted, both of those programs have come about in this moment, but neither of them is lost, or neither of them is the Matrix. They're kind of ordinary. They're teen soap operas. I think that's an interesting measure of the acceptance of this idea, and also, I suppose, the comfort that both producers and audiences have, dealing in this space. Of course, we need to acknowledge that, October last year, the writers were on strike. And the writers' strike was ultimately about how we manage the business end of those relationships. I think that the writers' strike taught a lot of people about how the media industry works. there were some wonderful little YouTube videos produced by, I think it was a guy from The Daily Show, who was on strike and edited together news footage of the writers' strike and what their claims or what they wanted to get paid, with footage from about 2 or 3 years ago that featured, industry execs talking about how big the profits were, in the online space. And so, it was this nice, very Daily Show kind of moment, that sort of said, this is big business, but perhaps we're not paying for it. And so if it is so significant, why is it still being put under marketing budgets or, whatever the issues were there? And so I suppose what I'm trying to get to is that, it's a lot more ordinary for that stuff to happen. And I think it's really interesting, especially to be at a conference like this, which is only in its second year. And last year we were really starting out. The crowd was probably half the size. And the speaker list was impressive as it is this year, but I'm not sure there was necessarily the common language or the common concepts. And it seems that almost in 12 months, the topics that we're talking about seem very familiar to everyone. So I think it's an interesting time to be around.
Is it just
me?
me?
Bad thing to say.
Is it just me, or do we seem to be moving towards our UI and redefining what interaction means with the kind of technologies? And I kind of go to what William from USC and those types of things. I mean, it's been around for a long time, but it just seems like with things like the iPhone and the surface computing that Microsoft has kind of really put some pushing on. It seems to me that we've kind of become comfortable with some of the language, like you're speaking to, this transmedia stories, and now it's this kind of next step could possibly be how we really interact and how our UI is changing into storytelling. Is I think where I'm going with that. Have you seen anything like that, or heard anything like that from the media players?
I'd have to say what I reckon. I'd have to say what I think is that the UI has caught up with kind of the cultural practices. And so touch is the Microsoft table thing, and the pinchy iPhone thing is I think answers to a change in our cultural practices. So at the first Futures Entertainment Conference, which is the conference that I run every November out in MIT, this year it's the 21st and the 22nd of November. I recommend everyone come. There was we're in our third year. The first Futures Entertainment Conference, I did this presentation one morning about lolcats and kind of the tangibility of media properties now. And so, we expect our media to be mashable, and we're happy to pull pictures from places and mash them together. As a society, we're a lot more comfortable with, with getting in the nuts and bolts of how media properties, images, graphics, film, how all of that works. And what I think has happened is that as that content has become more tangible, that we've built devices that allow us to do more tangible things with that content. So the pinch functionality, really simple thing, but really innovative on the iPhone, is about recognizing that you as a user might want to interact with, touch, turn around, spin, whatever, your picture, which is ultimately just a bit of data. And so, by recognizing that people aren't afraid to move things around, that they want to look, they want to, get in and look at the hairs in someone's nose or something or other, we can design these smart devices that use haptic displays and make the media tangible. And it's really interesting, the Surface project, because what they regularly demo, and I've never seen it live, I've only ever seen the videos, is of course reorganizing your photos and flicking them over here and treating them as if they were real, tangible objects, and of course they are. And that idea that that we should be able to move media properties with our hands, I think is affecting the way that we design things now. I think we're much more comfortable with that.
Well, I told you we'd do this in about 10. I should
not be so verbose.
No, you should always be more verbose. We love to hear what you have to say. And
excellent.
There's a lot of great things going on.
All right, mate.
I appreciate you taking the time.
I'll see you next year.
All right.
No worries. Catch you later.